What is an apostle? An apostle is a person who has forfeited their humanity to achieve demonhood. Apostles have two forms, one resembling their original human form, one a monstrous form. When an apostle is in their human form, the only definite sign that they are a supernatural being is their vertical pupils. When apostles are in their demonic form, they are massive, terrifying monstrosities. Miura was endlessly inventive in creating the apostles. They often have the wrong number of faces, eyes, arms, or even genitalia. They often resemble nightmarish insects, utterly freakish beasts. Most of the apostles we see enjoy eating human flesh, and all consider themselves superior to humans. An apostle is created when a human strikes a deal with the God Hand. Certain humans are given a behelit, apparently by chance, but in truth because they have been marked by causality, Berserk's version of fate. They are people who have the right qualities to become a demon, and so the behelit falls into their hands. When these humans are at their lowest, the wailing of their soul activates the behelit and opens a portal from the physical world to the world of the God Hand. There, the human in question is offered a deal. They can forfeit their humanity to become something monstrous and invulnerable. All they have to do is sacrifice that which they love the most, damning that person to be consumed by the vortex of souls, by hell itself. According to the God Hand, the sacrifice has to be a person, and the person has to be someone the sacrifice truly loves, the closest and nearest one to their heart. This is a fundamental law of becoming an apostle, established by Slan, Ubik, and Conrad, and all normal apostle sacrifices follow this rule. In the God Hand's first appearance in Volume 3, they tell the Count that the one who is sacrificed must be someone important, part of your soul, someone so close to you that it's almost like giving up a part of you. The result of this sacrifice is that you'll be able to sever any last remnants of your own humanity. A fissure in your heart will open up, into which evil will surge. After a potential apostle makes the invocation of doom, I sacrifice. The person is branded with the mark of sacrifice, their body and soul forever branded as an offering to the dark. This means that every apostle, from Zod to Locus, had someone they loved deeply. Every one of them experienced suffering so profound, it would summon the God Hand, and every single one of them damned the person they love to eternal torment. After making the sacrifice, apostles consider themselves more than human. The only rule they follow is do as thou wilt, and what most of them want to do, it seems, is slaughter, rape, and generally prove how weak and fragile humans are, and by implication, how correct their own choice to become other than human was. There are at least two other variations of this sacrificial ceremony, the Egg of the King and the Egg of the Perfect World. The sacrifice initiated by the Egg of the King is presented as a more complete version of the sacrifice, in which the person responsible for the sacrifice is entirely remade in an image of their choice. This requires a large group of sacrifices, rather than one or two people, and it can only take place during an eclipse of the sun. Another unique situation is that of the Egg of the Perfect World, which both made a sacrifice and was itself branded as a sacrifice, and in fact existed only for the purpose of making it possible for a God Hand to physically manifest. Who becomes an apostle? An apostle is someone who, as Daiba puts it, in life had an overabundance of ego. They are refashioned by causality and extraordinary obsession. Put more plainly, they are people with a great deal of charisma, drive, or will. The Count devoted his life to ridding his land of pagans, ruling with an iron fist. Rosine dreamed of a world of fairies and had the will to run away and seek it. Ganishka sought to unite his world under him. By apparent chance, during their lives, these people came across or were given a behelit. A behelit is created when an apostle is born, shedding their human life and feelings to become something supernatural. An apostle's choice to transform results in the creation of a new Behelit, a droplet of an idea that has spilled into eternity, a summons to the other world, the world of the God Hand. A Behelit is activated when a human soul reaches its lowest point, when death or endless despair seem inevitable, when ties of love or trust have been broken. A Behelit's features rearrange, its eyes and mouth open, and it reveals a weeping, howling face. However, while extreme suffering happens to many people throughout Berserk, the vast majority do not have Behelits. In fact, most live and die unaware of the mere concept of them. Behelits belong to people who experience this intense pain, desperately want to not experience it at any price, and, most importantly, are able to imagine an alternative. A Behelit belongs to someone who longs to be king of the world, to find a magical kingdom, to become an unbeatable warrior, or simply to be so far from their humanity that they can become utterly invulnerable to sorrow. There is an internal conflict in the owner of a Behelit between the best self they can imagine being and the worst self they feel they are trapped being. At the moment of deepest heartbreak, when the owner of a Behelit craves the power to escape or be remade, the potential apostle and all those surrounding them are transported into another world. When a God Hand is made, this world is deep in the astral plane, but ordinarily, it is an MC Escher-esque world of staircases running into one another endlessly. None of them make the journey to these other dimensions alone. In addition to their suffering and their longing to escape, every apostle has something else in common. There is someone they truly, deeply love. And in each of the cases we see, that person is also someone who has betrayed them. The Count's wife and her fellow pagans, Rosine's abusive father and weak mother, Ganishka's treasonous son, all had betrayed the one who became an apostle, had broken the Behelit holder's heart beyond hope of repair. Even Griffith felt Guts had betrayed him, and the Behelit didn't activate until Guts actually embraced him, while Griffith desperately wished he would stay away. How does someone become an apostle? The ceremony to create an apostle is called the Invocation of Doom. A potential apostle is presented with a way to end suffering that feels endless. They can escape the pain they are currently experiencing, leaving behind their human frailty. All they have to do is speak the invocation, I sacrifice, as they look at the person they love, the same person who has betrayed them, has made them weak and vulnerable to the very pain they are currently experiencing. It is repeatedly emphasized that truly this is a choice, and that the key element of this ceremony is the will of the one who sacrifices. If they do not speak the invocation, then the thread of causality will be severed, and all humans will return to the physical world unharmed. Causality is not unchangeable fate. It is cause and effect, and sometimes the effect has not been accurately predicted in the ineffable grand plan. However, it is a deeply cruel choice. To approach someone in their weakest moment and offer them the chance to be invulnerable, to transform and become a supernatural being beyond sorrow or despair. And it is a choice given to someone who has longed to be powerful their entire lives, offered to that person trapped at a moment where they feel more powerless than ever before, to make it an even more difficult choice. The Behelit only activates and summons the God Hand when the situation has become most dire, when despair has become truly inescapable, and the better world the future apostle longed for seems forever out of reach. Two of the sacrifices we see are a choice between becoming an apostle and actually dying. To deny the God Hand, to refuse the sacrifice, is to return to a situation that the future apostle has already felt was intolerable, or else they wouldn't have arrived there in the first place. It is, as Void says, the cruel grace of the God born of man. Grace is unasked for, undeserved mercy. This choice is indeed both undeserved mercy, an offer of deliverance from the pain of being human, a choice which will, no matter what, forever rend the heart of its maker. It's no wonder, then, that so many apostles do, in fact, make that choice. They sacrifice someone else's humanity, a part of their own humanity, to make themselves into something that is better than human. They experience suffering so profound as to make someone rip himself apart. Their last tear becomes a behelit, and they themselves become an apostle. If a person with a behelit is someone who is in conflict, trapped in their worst self, and dreaming of being some better, perfect self, then the moment of sacrifice and remaking is the moment when that internal conflict ends. Or so they think. While apostles regularly exclaim their differences, rant about how much better they are than what they were before, eat people, transform people, turn corpses into decorations, rape and maim, an ugly truth remains. At their core, they are still human. Apostles retain the emotional connections they had in their previous lives. In rare cases, like the Hunter and Zod, emotional connections to Sonia and Griffith have actually formed after becoming an apostle. Each time we have seen an apostle reflect on their sacrifice, they have experienced deep sorrow and even regret. When an apostle dies, a human body is left behind. There is a further tragedy embedded in being reincarnated in this way. As Puck says to the Count, "The truth is, you became this thing to run away from the pain inside your own heart, to run away from yourself. In seeking to overcome the weakness and sorrow that led them to the God Hand, an apostle has made a terrible, reactive choice. That choice, and the pain that led to it, will forever define them now. They believe that they have ended their internal conflicts, but those conflicts are the very things which allow humans to evolve. This means a new apostle will no longer be capable of coming to terms with or growing beyond the worst thing that happened to them. In seeking to be unbreakable, apostles have instead created an existence which is defined at its core by the fact that they were broken. As Puck points out, if anyone's a fragile human, it's you. Guts is right when he tells Griffith, "You're where you are now thanks to my petty existence." In dooming the person they love, an apostle has also doomed themselves. The souls of both sacrifices and those who invoke the sacrifices are bound to the vortex forever. Wait, but what about... There are two major variations on a normal apostle: the God Hand and the Egg of the Perfect World. Making a member of the God Hand is very similar to making an apostle. The only difference is that the invocation ceremony and resulting transformation requires more fuel or sacrificial offerings. The choice to make a sacrifice and the reasons behind it are fundamentally the same as for a normal sacrifice. However, the volume of sacrifices results in a different, more complete process. The physical body of a God Hand is permanently destroyed, and their soul descends to meet the idea of evil, the result of humankind's desire for there to be a greater plan behind their suffering. There, a God Hand can choose their own form. While apostles use magical power to create a physical body, and therefore only possess greatly enhanced physical power, God Hand members no longer exist as physical beings. They are astral beings, and unable to manifest physically, except in places where the barrier between the astral and physical world is already thin. There is also a significant difference in how God Hand members act as opposed to apostles. While apostles maintain strong love and even empathy for people they had loved before reincarnating, Griffith's actions demonstrate that positive feelings such as these do not seem to exist in him anymore. By the time he reincarnates again in his original shape, he is even able to look at the person he'd loved most in the world, Guts, and somewhat to his own surprise, feel nothing. Griffith is not the only one of the God Hand who seems incapable of feeling the full range of emotion. Void and Conrad do not demonstrate any emotions at all. Slan only ever displays lust and desire. and Ubik always presents as possessed by an almost mischievous delight. One possible interpretation of this is that when the God Hand were able to choose their forms, they were also able to choose what feelings their new incarnations would be capable of. Griffith always wanted to be cold and remote, careless of others' feelings, and so he is. Presumably, a similar choice was made by Ubik and Slam, while Conrad and Void no longer wished to experience emotion. The other variation on apostles is the egg of the perfect world. While apostles are people who possess an abundance of ego and desire, the human being who existed before the egg was precisely the antithesis of this. He never had a name, had no relationships, and was in fact incapable of speech, let alone coherent desire. It wasn't until he was near death that this changed. The God Hand intervened, at which point the egg developed a sense of self, an awareness of the world around him, and a desire born from despair. The egg of the perfect world existed to enable the physical incarnation of a God Hand, who would then create a perfect world the egg would not live to see. The egg was thus both the invoker and sacrifice itself, and the combination of its act, the onslaught of evil spirits, and the maneuvering of the God Hand meant it was able to bend the rules of both how sacrifices work and how time and space exist in the Berserk world. The importance of staying human. As branded people, Guts and Casca are, like apostles, permanently altered by the events of the sacrificial ceremony. The brand means that they exist in the interstice, the plane of existence where the physical and astral worlds overlap. It's a dangerous place for those marked as sacrifices, because their lives have been offered to the darkness, and they therefore constantly attract evil spirits. These spirits wish to possess them and use them to commit violence, to manifest physically the bitterness and rage they have clung to, even after they have forgotten why. At first, Guts and Casca are as much defined by the branding as any apostle is by the act of sacrifice. The trauma they endure during the eclipse mutilates and remakes their bodies, minds, and psyches, and the brand means that their day-to-day existence is constantly filled with reminders of that trauma. Both find the idea of living with this pain and moving forward as intolerable as apostles once did. Casca's mind shatters before the eclipse is even over, and afterwards, the person she was appears completely lost. She is unable to speak or understand language, unable to recognize even those she had loved, and often incapable of understanding the actions of those around her. Meanwhile, rather than facing his sorrow, Guts throws himself into the darkness, seeking to prove he is not merely a weak, fragile human with as much gusto as any apostle. This determination to show how powerful and monstrous he can be reaches the point where his monstrousness rivals that of the apostles themselves. However, neither Guts nor Casca truly lost their humanity during the eclipse. Their hearts were shattered, like those of every apostle. But while the apostles' human lives and journeys ended at that point, Guts and Casca's continued. Casca, unlike the apostles, did not give up on living and moving forward entirely. There was enough left of her mind and her will to live that she could be reconstructed and could return to humanity with all the pain and hope that entails. And Guts, while his time driving himself to be more and more monstrous left him changed, has been able to form new relationships, to trust again, and to move forward. Guts and Casca have been able to escape even the most inescapable consequence of the eclipse, the brand's influence on dead spirits. They were able to reach an island on which the brand would not mark them for death. The journey of Guts and Casca shows that remaining human after experiencing true despair means existing in the world of shadows, but also in a world where the sun does rise, even when the night seems darkest. When the unendurable is endured, there is still the possibility of hope.